Hello, welcome back to the High Ground Podcast. I am excited because I've been wanting to speak here to Nerd Speech or our friend Derek for quite some time, and it happened to work out, and so I'm super excited. But yeah, to get started, can I get you to introduce yourself, tell people who you are, what you talk about, and where they can find you?
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad we're finally able to do this. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of your guys's videos, your podcasts, everything you guys do. For those of you watching and don't recognize my beautiful face, my name is Derek. I go by the handle of Nerd Speech online, nerd.speech if you're on Instagram. And yeah, I kind of just talk about nerdy things as the name implies. I like to kind of have a little bit more of like layered discussion when it comes to it. So not just like X-Men is cool, but X-Men is actually social commentary, right? That kind of a deal. So the speech technically came from the idea of like, free speech, right? So like nerd speech. So kind of a fusion of the two.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. But that's way more complicated than it needs to be. I think most people don't even care that that's where the name comes from. But that's kind of the gist of what I do is I try and give a little bit of a deeper meaning in to the stuff that we all consume.
and that's what drew what like really stuck out for me, and what I appreciate about your content so much is I get the impression that if you don't have something to say, you won't make a video,
Correct.
or or that I'm not calling anyone out, but there are certain content creators that are just like hype all the time,
Yeah.
and I've just had to like block them. Like I can't. They haven't even said anything.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what this is.
Yeah, so I have the opposite problem, if anything. So a buddy of mine, great dude, he gave me some feedback from like his perspective. He's not a creator; he's just a guy online that enjoys a lot of the same stuff I do. And he's like, "Hey, I think if you scaled back or don't get so caught up in the woke stuff and the social justice type stuff." And he didn't mean it like social justice, like what
Yeah.
it actually means. He means it more just like giving more context and advocating for like good faith reviews and critiques. His feedback was if you don't focus so much on that and focus more so on like what's trending, I think you'd be a lot more successful, a lot quicker and blow up faster, yada yada. And he's not wrong, but I think doing what I do is I do what I do because I enjoy it. And then the following and the engagement and the community is just kind of a benefit.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily trying to sit there and be like, these are the top 10 Easter eggs on the latest Marvel movie. Like, to me, I love those videos. I'll watch them and I'll be like, oh shit. But to make that is just like so mundane for me. So like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like just doing hype stuff or like super kind of just like surface level reviews or just like, did you notice this detail type stuff? I'm not always a huge fan of it. I'll do it every now and then, but typically I try and do a little bit more of like 90 seconds or longer type of video content.
Yeah, and honestly, it's really easy to do. Like, it would be very easy to. It's just noise, I want to have
Hmm.
conversations, and again, and I think you'll probably agree. Sometimes we are just hype about something, and we just want to share that energy. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, I would get so bored if I was just making noise. And
Yeah.
there are certain content creators who are really big, and I feel bad for them because I can tell that they hate what they're doing, and they've just like pigeonholed themselves into this persona. And yeah, I can't do it. I wouldn't survive.
Absolutely. I think the ones that I think work best are the ones that probably do a mixture of the two. Straw Hat Goofy comes to mind, right? Like he tends
Yeah.
to do kind of a bit of both, right? He'll have these discussions. I think one of the ones that stood out to me recently was he made a video about like the fraternity dance in the Bel
Hmm.
Air series. I don't know if you saw it,
Yeah, I did.
but it was essentially like one of those cases where it's like art, real life mirroring art, where it's like essentially like all these creators that tend to happen to just be white males are using the audio from the show, and there's like kind of no context as to where it's from. It's just kind of like a trending audio that happened out of nowhere, and it's just kind of like literally bring it on in real life, where like the white people stole it from the black culture. That's something that when you think of Straw Hat Goofy, you don't necessarily your mind doesn't go there first. But when you see him doing a video, you're like that, you're like, that's right, he does do something. He does do stuff like this every now and then. To me, I think
Yeah.
that's probably the best kind of scenario where it's like, all right, he's traveling the world, he's hosting panels, he's doing kind of big things, but he's also not doing like that super mundane stuff that just kind of feeds the masses, that some creators, like you said, have to keep doing it because that's just what their
Yeah.
following is. It happens to me every now and then if I try and go just outside of my niche. If I'll talk about Taylor Swift, I'll get like either zero engagement or I'll get the weird crowd show up and that kind of deal. So it's, you kind of have to stick to like to the bread and butter, so to speak, to keep that engagement going.
You do and you don't. Here's what I'll say on that one. So when it comes to content creation, you can expand. I have expanded and then contracted, but you have to do it constantly, and you have to plan it out. So like if there's something like going to drop, like when the next season of, I don't know, Dancing with the Stars pops up, and you're super hype on it, you want to talk about that, you gotta like 2 months in advance start making videos on that topic.
Yeah.
So you're like warm the algorithm up, and then when you hit that thing, you're like, oh, it's not the first time he's talking. Yeah, so you can kind of expand like that. But what's kind of your bread and butter, right? Because I see you talk
Yeah.
Star Wars, I see you talk DC, see a little bit of everything. What is like the focus?
Yeah, I think
Or just geek?
what was that? Just Geek?
Yeah, like if you have a preference between the franchises, if you were to like rank what you love.
Yeah, so I think if I had a preference, I think I'd have to just say Marvel stuff, right? MCU, some comic stuff, and I've had a few people be surprised when I tell them like I'm not really like a huge comic nerd. I'm just really good at research. So and just kind of like what's it called, pattern recognition. So if I'll see a quote in a TV show or in a movie or a shot that's framed a certain way, I'll be like, that's from a comic book.
They're showing me this for a specific reason.
Yeah,
Where's it from?
exactly.
Yeah, I do
And
the
then I'll
same
go
thing.
look it up and I'll be like, shit, yeah, that was that. And don't get me wrong, some things I do know because I do read comics. I have read comics for most of my life. So, it's not like I'm completely blind to it either. I'm not as up to date as some of my friends are. But yeah, I'd say it's probably Marvel, and then Star Wars tends to be my kind of 49%, so 51% Marvel, 49% Star Wars. I like to throw DC in the mix every now and then. It's just been kind of tough. I think if people who are listening in or watching, I'm sure you guys have noticed, DC makes it hard to love sometimes, and the old extended universe it existed, and then this new one now is still kind of wading through that controversy, for lack of a better word, right? Like every other day it's like, here's another rumor, here's James Gunn debunking it, here's this other random guy saying that Matt Reeves should have taken over instead of James Gunn, and then you have the Snyder crowd still yelling about Snyder's. I don't like to super get into that on a regular basis, just because it's such a divided fandom, and I think every fandom is divided, but I think DC has a very particular type of division right now. So I tend to just stick to like whatever's trending on the DC side. So I've done some Penguin things in the past couple of days. I rewatched the Batman, so I just took that as an opportunity to make a video about that. But for that, I tend to kind of just stick to what's trending. But back here, that little red thing right there is actually a cosplay that I made of Pizza Parker from Spider-Man 2 with his helmet. So that's kind of where Marvel lives in my life, right? I'll grab it. So it's Joe's Pizza, sticker on there and everything.
That's sick.
So yeah, I'd say Marvel's probably my go-to, even if it's not trending or anything's happening or airing that night. I'll be like, you know what? I want to do a video about how Joe's Pizza is actually a real place in New York, and you can go to it, and it's unrealistic that he was expected to deliver 8 pizzas 44 blocks away, because here's the math and here's the distance, and that's what I did. So it's definitely Marvel heavy for sure. And then every now and then I do like to also try and, like you said, expand. I'm just really bad at the planning ahead of time piece. So I'll
Yep.
expand and based off of whatever's trending. And if it's Taylor Swift, it's Taylor Swift. If it's something in politics, I'll do that. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It is what it is. I think ultimately what guides me is inspiration and motivation. So if it's something that obviously I enjoy and it inspires me and I have an idea around it, I'll just do it. So, nothing's off limits. And then, uh, you know, Star Wars tends to kind of be one of those other DC kind of adjacent fan bases where it can get weird. I don't know if you know that, but so that tends to be
Uh,
another one that I'm a little bit more cautious about too. But ultimately speaking, it's just, whatever I love, I do it. And, I try not to overcomplicate it. Like I've overcomplicated this answer that I've just been ranting about for the last, 4 or 5 minutes.
no, it's good. It's good though. I mean, you went to good places. No, I particularly was enjoyed when you were covering the Acolyte as it was coming out, because
Yeah.
I was like really excited to find people who were actually talking about
Yeah.
the show, about the content and what we were seeing on screen, and not
Yep.
weird nitpicks and stuff like that. And I was like, he's not an idiot. That's awesome.
Yes. All right. Yeah. That's always a good sign, right? When you're not considered a weirdo.
Yeah, it was good times. But ultimately, I wanted to find out, because I did see your video the other day that was about after the Acolyte, it's not moving forward with the season 2, and we got lots and lots of people saying, "Well, it's because no one watched it, because no one watched," and that bugged the heck out of me, because like
Yeah.
a lot of people watched the show. Like if you
Yeah.
were in the top 10 for streaming shows, that's a
Hmm.
lot of people,
Yep.
regardless. But yeah, I want to talk about that video, and what did you find in the comments? What were people saying?
I mean, acolyte comments are always acolyte comments, right? The kind of, just the title of the show speaks for itself. You know what you're going to kind of expect. I do find that it varies by platform. TikTok has been really good for me in terms of curating and building a community. So the comments tend to be a little bit more supportive or in agreement, or even when they disagree, they know that I'm not like a dickhead, so they won't
No,
bring that energy in. I've learned recently what the term warm creator means, which is a weird term, but they know that
what does
like
it
our
mean? Never heard
so it's
that
essentially
before.
a creator that engages, like genuinely engages with their audience. So you'll see them in the
Okay, good.
comments, you'll see them replying, you'll see them, genuinely engaging with the people that they're saying to asking to follow them. So I think that makes it a little bit harder for people on TikTok to just be mean to me. But again, acolyte comments are acolyte comments. There's always going to be a few. The worst by far, I think, is YouTube for me. That's where the comment section and the nuance goes to die, which is actually ironic because you get full on dissertations in the comment sections in YouTube. It'll be like, hey, you said this, you're wrong. And then there's 3 or 4 paragraphs about, half the time I don't read them. So if you're one of those people and you're watching this, just know we don't care. We hide it so we don't see it, because I'm not spending that time on whatever weird bad faith, very selective thing you want to kind of yell at me about. What I've noticed though in general though is people just want to be mad. People just want to be upset, and they don't want to be, and at the same time, they don't want to be wrong. But then at the same time, they can't admit when they're wrong or biased or selective. So it's just kind of like this weird cycle of feelings that they have that allows them to just continue to exist without self-reflection and just kind of steamrolling their way through comment sections with the same like 3 or 4 talking points. A recent one I got was about the viewership for the Penguin. So I made a video saying how the viewership for the Penguin was at 10.4 million over 11 days. And I just used it as an opportunity to say like, hey, grifters, where you at with this one? You guys are pretty quiet because 10.4 million over 11 days. I don't know. I'm not a mathematician here, but that's less than the 11 million viewer premiere of The Acolyte over 7 days. And actually, even that's still also lower than the average 9 million per episode over 7 days that The Acolyte got throughout the entire series. So like, where are you guys at now? And you guys, and they also brought that same energy for Agatha. It's a couple episodes in. Agatha all along, they're also using that same kind of narrative of viewership. The Penguin, all of a sudden, they're kind of quiet about it. And there's a lot to be said about like the different types of shows and how it's weird to even compare them and that whole kind of thing, and they're different audiences, yada yada yada, which is totally valid. But specifically the complaint about the views is there's no critiques about it. It's if anything, they're saying that it's awesome. It's being praised for having basically the same, if not less, viewership than The Acolyte. And the comments there and the replies there were all basically like, well, it didn't cost as much as The Acolyte cost. And sure, you're not wrong, but $180 million versus $230 million, that's still a hell of a lot of money. You're acting like one costs $20 and the other costs $10,000. Like, no, you're talking the difference of like $100 and $150. Yes, there's a difference, but not really. Not as significant as what you're making it seem. And then there's other people that are just like disputing the data. Those are the ones that really get me. Those are the ones that after a certain point I have to say, Derek, you are no longer replying to comments on this video. Just mute notifications. Yeah. Stop looking at it, because those are the ones that they reel you in and they bring you down to their level, and then they win because they're more experienced at being dumb. There's, there'll be people that are like, it's US only. The Acolyte played the dirty trick of doing global reporting. And it's like, first of all, that's not a dirty trick. That's just standard
It's a
reporting.
Global company.
Yeah. Like that's just standard reporting. And then secondly, like the HBO reporting is also global. It's just the way they dumped all the data was very weird. And I really hate when I sound like a conspiracy theorist, because I hate conspiracy theorists. But the way they released the data was like, hey, look, in the first 4 days, it did 5.3 million in the US. And then over the first 11 days, it did 10.4 million. So the way it sounds, yeah, I could totally understand how some people think that 10.4 means US only, right? But just like critical thinking tells you that the second 4 days or the last 6 days didn't do just as well as the first 4 days in the US. Like, just the assumption is right in front of you that it has to be global, because it's insane to think that a show did the same exact number every day for 11 days as the day it premiered. So yeah. It's things like that where it is a mixture of ignorance and genuine, like, hey, I misinterpreted something and that kind of deal. But I think what's more important that a lot of these people lack, and I think maybe I did at one point too, when I was like 17, 18, maybe even 23, 24, was that you're not able to just own when you're wrong. Like, hey, yeah, I'm wrong here. I don't need to like defend myself. Like I should just own up to my mistake, move on. That's it. So that's really what I find is there is that ignorance. What was that?
Or that the conversation should be towards finding the answer and not winning.
Yes,
I think that's a big one as well.
Yeah, and a few people when I posted would be like, because the way I post is I'll do a video, maybe I'll do a shorter video if I want to like have it fit within the Instagram real limit or whatever. But then I'll do like some sort of a text version or a series of text versions on threads. So it's like kind of multi-platform in that sense.
Yeah.
So on threads, they'll comment like it's US only, you're being dishonest, blah, blah, blah. And there I'll very quickly be like, give me a link. I'll gladly remove this if show me where you see that. And it'll just be like a screenshot of some random guy's tweet who that guy clearly misinterpreted it. Or it's a screenshot of an article that explains the numbers I was just talking about. But again, they're highlighting the part that applies to the US viewership only. They're not highlighting, they're literally misinterpreting it themselves and just screenshotting it there too. So like, I'll ask and I'll engage in ways to do what you said, to find an answer and to see if I'm right or wrong. Because at the end of the day, like I've got nothing to prove here. Like I know I'm a good person and I know that
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, it doesn't make me a bad person. So what's the answer here? Let's hash it out.
And that's something I've always done as well, where I'll make a video that I start by saying I was wrong, and like this is what I said, this is where it was wrong, and this is the correct answer, and I do that as well as take down the old video because I don't want people
Yeah.
seeing the wrong information,
Yep.
once that's out there. And that's one of the things that drives me crazy the most. There's a really fascinating book. It's called "Trust Me, I'm Lying," and it's by
I saw that recently, actually. It's funny that you mentioned it.
yeah.
It intrigued me for a second. There's probably like a tab open on my browser somewhere with it. But yeah, that's a coincidence that you brought that
Yeah.
up.
No, yeah, it's by this guy named Ryan Holiday, and he was like a media like manipulator, but from back in the day, and basically, and a lot of the stuff that like the book is from 2012, right? So he a
Okay.
lot of it he's talking about like the blog industry,
Yeah.
but he talks about how he manipulated it back then, and I mean, I recommend anyone who is like ethical reads this book because it really like shines a light on some of the schemes. How if you it has changed how I view content creation because again, back then he's talking mostly about people who were making blogs and stuff like that, but
Hmm.
they would be paid by word count or by the amount of posts, and
Mm.
so even if it's not and by views on them and by clicks, right? So
Okay.
you're only incentivized to get as much information out there as quickly as you can, and
Yeah.
not for fact checking. And that larger channels can just, even if they're credible journalists, they
Hmm.
can use a less credible channel as a source and then make content based off of that. And like he talks about how he would like see the people he wanted and see where they read articles, and then he would put stuff in to capture the ideas of those people so that it gets bubbled up to the media outlet that he wants it to. And like a bunch of insane stuff. He talks about how like an article when it first comes out, it gets views right away and they drop down tremendously. So even if you are wrong, even if you do add a contraction or something like that to the article, the vast majority of people have already blown past it and stuff like that.
Yep.
That's what kills me about content creation because we are not journalists. We're not. That's true.
Yeah.
But I think we should have the ethics at least.
Correct. Yes.
You know,
Yeah. It's
even if I get something that is not from a credible source, I'm not going to do a reaction to it because by me reacting to it, I know I'm going to spread this thing around more that may or may not be correct. I'm going to fact check it before, but that gets me less views.
yeah.
Or by the
Yep.
time I do it, there's already a bunch of videos out there because that's all that matters to them because it's unethical. It's a whole thing.
Yes. Yeah. It's a mess out there, man. Like for lack of a better expression, it's a goddamn mess. And the tricky part for me sometimes is that I'm friends with some of these people, and they're great people, right? And I don't want to call anybody out by name, but I know that the grift is the grift. it's tough sometimes because you want to feel like you're not supporting somebody that you know is doing things that are, if not full-blown unethical, might make you feel a little bit kind of about it. So over time, you start stepping back and you start kind of disengaging with some of that content, and you'll still follow each other, whatever. And I think it's one of those things where it's like I envision myself blowing up one day, and then it'll be like, oh, but he follows such and such and such and such and all these people, and which is just kind of me being a weirdo about it. It's not that serious either, but the point is, it's kind of like, as a creator, it's like what you're saying. We're not journalists, but we should have those ethics. And I think a lot of creators either go into it understanding that. So just to go back to Lord of the Rings, Don Marshall, he's like the other big Lord of the Rings guy. He used to be a journalist or had some sort of journalistic background. So he
And it
understands a lot of that.
shows.
Yeah, exactly. He understands a lot of it. He's very much like not hyper reactionary. He's not like, what I like to call Fox News on TikTok, like
Yeah.
where it's like sensationalized and that kind of deal. He's there to make his content. He releases it. People genuinely love it. They engage with it. It's a good one, right?
No, it's a good one, and I feel like if we were like to name a creator, we'd probably name the same exact
Oh
one.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um,
I mean, which one? That's the thing. We'd probably name a few of the same ones, plural, because there's a few of them.
yeah.
But yeah, he understands that. He went into it. I think most people go into it and they don't know it. They might have an idea, but they don't really think too deep about it. And then after a certain point, you either get it or you don't. So you learn from it and you evolve and you grow, and then you act accordingly. Or you just continue to be that same like hype monster, reactionary, let me just talk about this and misrepresent it, and who cares, because I don't reply in comments anyways, and if I do, it's me being a troll. So, it's not to say it's right or wrong. I just happen to be of the opinion that we're like adults, so we should act like adults, like responsible adults that, and I think that also goes circles, and then I think that connects into an extreme example of this is obviously like Andrew Tate and stuff. I guess that's the most extreme example, but like a lesser extreme than that is the Paul brothers, right? Or that other guy,
Yeah.
I Show Speed or whatever. They make content for children, right? Like they make and granted, they're not doing commentary, they're not doing like critical reviews of stuff, but they're making YouTube and TikTok content that's for teenagers, for kids,
Yeah.
and they're like grown men, which is fine, right? Like they're not being weird about it in that sense. But I don't know one single adult that watches Logan Paul and Jake Paul and all and that whole little kind of corner of the internet, and
That's
they're like,
true. That's true.
hell yeah, hell yeah, love that guy, subscribe to that guy day one. Like it's just it's for kids, which is fine, but then don't turn around and like act as if you're like the shit. Because like honestly, you're not. You're just another creator online doing their thing. We all have our gimmick. Yours just happens to be making entertainment for the 18 to 24 demographic. And I say 18 to 24 because I think legally you can't measure under
Yeah.
that. So it is what it is. But for like those of us that want to do it for the older audience, there's going to be people that act like children, even though they're older. That's not the audience I'm trying to appeal to. I don't think that's the audience you want to appeal to either, unless it's you guys when you talk about, when you fact check somebody, when you follow up on the state of the Star Wars fan base, that kind of deal. So, everybody has their gimmick. Like I was saying, it's just, does everybody follow that same kind of idea that we're here to inform, educate, entertain, not weaponize sensationality?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's about the understanding the impact of your actions. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
If I can do something and it motivates these people to do that, and I can say I didn't tell them to do that, but I knew
Yeah.
this would lead to that, and so
Hmm.
or even if I didn't know, I should be aware that I have that ability and should be careful. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we didn't learn anything from X-Men. You know what I mean? Like you could
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't. We
uh
didn't.
we're
And
Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. You gotta
yeah.
that's just number one. I gotta ask, what's your favorite iteration of Spider-Man?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
You can go comics, you can go
Yeah.
animated,
Yeah.
you can go
Yeah.
live action,
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to think of.
you can go Sony.
I mean, live action, I go back and forth between Toby and Tom Holland. Toby, just because I like him as Spider-Man. I think he toes that line between sassy when he's wearing the costume. When he's Spider-Man, he's sassy. Oh, and some of the jokes wouldn't cut it in today's climate, But the movies, they're good, but they're also, from the early 2000s. So they don't age the best in certain regards. But I think Tom Holland is the best like modern version of that, I guess, with like a better way of approaching movie making, filmmaking.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll continue post, what is it? Like, I guess moving forward, right? Like, because up until now, we've got in the Spider-Man trilogy, he is, and essentially
And
that was
and
just
I
one
wanna
bit.
say he's got 2 more appearances, right? 2 more?
Yeah, something like that. There's, I think, two appearances still with the same contract. And I guess the assumption there is that that will be his first, like, non-origin story movie. Because really, that whole trilogy was his origin story.
Yeah.
He was still in high school. He was doing it full time, sure, but kind of very like barely even street level, trying to manage being a teenager, and
And
it was
uh, can I just say, for the love of God, can we stop putting him in high school? I don't understand why they still think of him as, like, the teenage hero when you're like,
Mhm.
in the comics, he was a teenager for, like, 3 years, like, 3 real life years
Yeah,
because they
yeah,
actually aged,
because it takes time
in
to
real
like,
time back then.
yeah,
Yeah, and all of the adventures that we know, all of the villains and characters and stuff we know happened in college and beyond. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, and I think some of that I think is legal stuff. I think they're just kind of like, right, we have this contract, let's not blow things out of the water with
yeah.
the time frame and how old he is. Let's not overdo it just yet because we might not be able to renegotiate. We might not be able to get an extension or a new contract. So I think part of it is that, and I think it's worked for what it is. But I think, yeah, so now, like, obviously he's graduated. I think he was taking his GED test or
Yeah.
something at the end of the last one. So I'm sure
Well,
he
I mean, so
passed.
like you said, like now we get Spider-Man. But it's interesting how they did it. So I do approve of that. But like for me, I gotta say the Insomniac Spider-Man 4 or Spider-Man PS4 game.
Oh, okay.
I love that iteration of him, and when that game came out, it blew my mind.
Okay.
Um,
That's
and
fair.
it totally reimagined a lot of the characters, but I don't feel like any of them missed the core of the character. You know?
Right. Yeah, I think they're all right. I think that's another thing too is when it comes to content creation and stuff too is these types of conversations here, like we know each other, we've had conversations in the past. You can say that and I understand what you mean, right?
Yeah.
And you could tell me what your favorite is and I get it. But I can go make a video and I could just say how Tobey Maguire is my favorite or Tom Holland's my favorite, whatever. And some people will take it as Andrew Garfield sucks. And it's kind of like, no, that's not what I said, right? So to your point, yeah, they've all been great. They've all hit the core of the character. They've all have been represented in different ways, but they are still Spider-Man. But the it's really just a matter of preference in terms of who's better or not. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any of the others worse or bad even.
And now, okay, so here's my unpopular opinion.
Uh-oh.
First of all, Flash Thompson, I love him as Venom. And I wanted Venom Space Knight to stay a thing. I don't know if you remember when that happened in the comics, but Venom, as you know, started out as Agent Venom,
Right.
and he partnered up with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then he was doing adventures in space, and
Yeah.
that's where we found the Clintar homeworld and all this stuff. And then after that, the Venom symbiote was healed and was a good guy, and it was its full form, and he just went on space adventures. And it was almost like a Green Lantern book, but with a heroic Venom, and it was called Venom Space Knight. It was way too short. I miss it. Of course, they had to get it back to Eddie, but
Right.
still.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the fun part about comics, and I think that's actually partially why I don't partake in. That makes it sound like it's a drug or something. It's why I don't read them as often, because I told you earlier I went to the comic book store today, and it's just so much.
There is so much.
I can sit there and just read everything slowly over time for until the end of my life, and I would not mind. But I have to make money to survive and keep a shelter and food and shower and just live and exist in this world. The
you
you know priorities, I guess, kind of came into play there. But like you said, like there is actually no reason why. Or sorry, there is 1000% the ability for Marvel to see this video and be like, you know what, Choco wants more Space Knight books. Let's make it happen for him. Maybe we gotta get you a diagnosis or something. Maybe get you through a foundation, make it a kind of Wish type of deal, and they'll make some more books for you. That's what I think is so fun about comics, is that you can do it. Yeah, and the lore, you know how lore is. It
yeah.
works when you want it to work. It's not a huge deal. All of this
I
is
mean,
fake. It's all fictional. It's about
as
it's a
Pablo Hidalgo says, hyperspace works at the speed of plot. That's why
yes,
everyone arrives. Everyone arrives exactly where they need to be when they need to be there. Never any sooner or later. Like,
yeah,
how long
yeah,
does it take
exactly.
to hyperspace jump to Tatooine? I don't know. Is it a week? Is it a
It
month? Is
doesn't
it an
matter.
hour? I don't know.
It
It
doesn't
doesn't matter.
matter. But sometimes it works in a way where it doesn't work, forcing characters to land on Tatooine en route to Coruscant and then have to gamble the lives of a literal slave child, in order to get the replacement part for it to work. And then, so yeah, some of this is
Yeah,
weird and silly and kind of strange.
very strange. And that's the Jedi Master everyone loves.
Yeah, yes, yes. That's, oh my God, that's the craziest part of it all, is that for just to kind of sum up my point here, because the prequels are not good. Like, they're not, they're good, but they're not like this magnum opus
I
of
love them,
filmmaking. I love
but
them.
I can't say that I think they're good. And one thing I will never say, because I don't want to die. Like, I think the sequels are far better films. Like, if
Yes,
you like on a film level, I don't see how anyone could make any other argument. But it doesn't mean I don't love the prequels. I like them
correct,
more than I like the sequels, except
correct.
for The Last Jedi. I love that. I like the prequels more overall. But like, yeah, they're super
Here's,
weird.
I made a
Like,
video
the whole
about how.
plot,
Go ahead.
which real quick, they
Yeah.
because they retconned. People saw a guy that looked really cool in the background of the Phantom Menace, and then that became Quinlan Voss. They were like, "That's another Jedi, and he's on a secret mission and all this stuff." And they just made him a character, and he's canon and all this stuff now. But now it's like, well, why didn't he just help you get off planet? You know what I mean? Like, they didn't notice each other. It's but it's funny.
George
Like, when you
Lucas is somewhere like, oh, just counting his money. No idea.
in this the same people will tell you Qui-Gon was the ultimate Jedi, and every Jedi should have been like Qui-Gon, and they'll still turn around and be like, "Why did they leave Anakin's mother?" You know, you're like, Qui-Gon left his mother, and he had reasons to. Like
Yeah.
there was a bomb in their body, but like I feel like Star Wars fans have a very big biased plot, and that will lead them to say one thing about this, and hate this in here, love it over here, and
Yep.
not understand that you can't judge the entire Jedi Order because of the actions of one Jedi over here, and then say this guy's better than the Jedi Order because he did something different. Like each of them
Yeah.
made an individual choice.
Yep.
Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, and that's actually one of the things I really loved about the Acolyte is
They were bad, baby.
I hated Indara so much until
Yeah.
we got to episode 7, and I was like, she was
Oh.
reasonable. That's why they have those rules in place to stop people from doing wacky
Yeah.
stuff like this.
And she's still bent to the rules at the end of
Yeah.
it all. So she still kind of was complicit at the end of it all, which is, or at least complicit in terms of Osha's story from the rescue forward. But yeah, she was the one doing things right, or
Yeah.
trying to. Yeah.
That's why you gotta choose your ride or dies. Sometimes because you don't want to die.
Yeah. Yeah, correct. I made a video a while back I think it was pre-Acolyte, I don't remember, but it was about should they remake the prequels and the original trilogy. The original trilogy, I'm less adamant about that idea, about remaking those, because I don't think at the end of it all, like from a story perspective and from a way that they were made perspective, they're as bad as the prequels, right? They had Steven Spielberg and whoever else kind of chiming in and giving notes along the way and stuff. So, I think that is very evident in how straightforward and
Can we just appreciate that George Lucas had his own little writing room where he had Coppola there, Spielberg was there.
yeah,
Every massive director right now, we're
yeah,
all friends with him, and he was workshopping Star Wars with him.
yeah. Coppola pre all the not Godfather stuff.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
But yeah, I think that's very clear that it's like, they were essentially like, George, what the fuck is going on here? Like what is going on with these movies, dude? Or, and I think that's like where the opening crawl came from, right? Like they were kind of like, what's the context? And then the prequels came around, and I think obviously Star Wars was successful at that point, but I think it's very clear that that little writer's room wasn't around anymore, just out of how convoluted the plot of the prequels was. And it's not to say that they shouldn't have been complex, but they also shouldn't have been pod racing. And I love pod racing. I think pod racing is so cool. But dude, come on, what are we doing here?
I feel your pain because there's so much I love about the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
But only the very end of that movie has relevance to Star Wars. And there's no actual protagonist of the film. The film's not about anyone.
Yeah.
It's kind of about Qui-Gon sometimes. It's mostly about Padme. I think Anakin is supposed to be the main character, but we don't meet him until an hour in.
Yeah. He had that cool poster. Yeah.
That was one of the greatest posters of all time.
Yeah. And then, but to what you were saying though, they should remake the prequels basically. So what you were saying about like that double standard, right? Like this character is bad for this character. People were complaining about what was his name? Torben, the dude from Game of Thrones. They were complaining about Torben and how he didn't want to be there. He wanted to go home and he was bitching or whatever. That's literally Obi-Wan in Phantom Menace. Obi-Wan hated everything about being a Jedi. in Phantom Menace. He's like, oh, another pathetic life form. You know, like why am I? Oh, yeah, I just want to go home. I just want to get back to Coruscant. So it's again one of those double standards that it's, people pick and choose when it's okay, when it's not. I'm definitely on the side of, and I say this very like loosely because again, none of this is that serious. It's fiction. But Luke, if you really sit down and think about it, in the original trilogy is a Mary Sue or Gary Stu, I guess. In the first one,
Yeah.
in a New Hope, at least in the other ones, you start to see him get trained and all that stuff. But in Episode 4, in A New Hope, Luke is a Gary Stu, and it's not out of like he was written poorly or whatever. It's just like that's just how storytelling is sometimes. Like it's established he has got a connection to the Force. It's established that he's got these abilities. So yeah, you're gonna see him training for like 2 seconds, and then boop, boop, all right, with the blinder on, and then we get it. Yeah, he used the Force. He blew up the Death Star. Boom, done deal. Like it's not that serious. But then all of a sudden, you see Rey, that you see literally like scavenging to survive. So you see her fighting at the junkyard or whatever. Right there, that tells you, okay, she's been in a fight before. Like that's not telling you, oh, all of a sudden she could fight. No, that's telling you she's experienced in fighting.
I saw a video people were like telling me to watch, and when that scene happens, he's like, "See, we haven't established that she knows how to fight yet." And I'm like, "This is the beginning of the movie. This is establishing it.
This is establishing it." Yes, yes. You know what we didn't establish? That Luke could fly a fucking spaceship, let alone blow up the Death Star. And then the what is it? The excuse or the reasoning that a lot of these people give is like, yeah, he was number one with the Womp Rats in Tashi Station or whatever it is, that it's like this deep lore. It's not even Easter egg lore. It's like you have to dive into the extended universe or whatever issue of the fan newsletter came out in 1983 that explained
you find out
it.
That NCOM is the same company that creates X-Wings as the Skyhoppers. And so the controls were similar. Yeah,
right.
That's canon.
Yeah. And like, you know what? That's fine. That's fine. I'm not calling, and this is the point that goes over their head when I make the video or the tweet or whatever, or not tweet because I'm not on Twitter anymore, but the threads post or whatever, when I call Luke a Gary Stu, is I'm not genuinely saying he's a Gary Stu. I'm calling him a Gary Stu to call you out on your nonsense about Rey being a Mary Sue. Like, I know he's not a Gary Stu. I get it. Technically, he kind of is. I don't.
No, I was going to say So one of the most important factors in being a Mary Sue or a Gary Stu is that you have to be an author's self-insert.
Mm-hmm.
And Luke is that. Like Luke is the only person that actually fits that criteria. Yes. And it's really funny. Rey is of our three protagonists, Rey is the weakest of the three and has the most reason to be skilled, like just from her life and stuff at her age. Because I mean, Anakin is flying through space. He's 8. You know what I mean? It's like, you're a pilot.
Now that's what I call pod racing.
Spinning. That's a good trick. Anyways.
Whoa, bro! There's literally a shot. I'm sorry, I just gotta get this off my chest. There's literally a shot where he's holding the control stick, and he's like, "You just said it, right? Spinning. That's a good trick." And you just see him go. He goes like that to the control stick, and then the next shot is him which is actually kind of weird because he's in space, so he shouldn't be.
Shouldn't he be the center of the?
Why is he dizzy?
That's the other thing that I always found funny is like, hyperspace doesn't work like that. They fly like they're planes in the sky. You know what I mean? Like if we start tearing apart here, like the whole thing will unravel. All right.
Yes. Yep. You know what else doesn't work that way? All of it. Everything that you've seen from literally the most realistic part of Star Wars is that there's a desert planet. That's where it ends. The desert exists. Everything else, fake, not real.
Let's love Dexter Jetster. I love him as a character, and he runs a '50s diner in space in the past, but also kind of in the future.
I always forget that. But yes, he does. It's a great diner.
And that's actually why I love George Lucas so much, is because he's a madman, and you can tell in his interviews. One of my favorite interviews of him, he talks about how he stopped enjoying making movies because people were expecting him to do certain things.
Yeah.
And the example he used was, it's like I paint a house and I want to make it a greenhouse, but you say it should be a white house, and maybe it should be a white house, but I want it to be a greenhouse.
It's my house. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and that's why I loved him. He was just like, it got edited
I don't
down,
know,
but
man.
he wanted half of A New Hope just to be the droids wandering through the desert.
Hell yeah. I think, look, if you ask me, Kathleen Kennedy ruined Star Wars. All right. She put bricks and screws in the Death Star. All right. She caused electrical fires that burned down stone structures.
Oh my
Okay.
God, I forgot about
George Lucas would have never had any of that. Okay. George Lucas, the madman that he was, would have figured it out in a better way. For example, the entire half a sequel trilogy about midichlorians. That is real Star Wars. Sorry, hate to break it to you.
It's just so no. Dave
It's a lot.
Filoni should Dave Filoni needs to run Star Wars, and you're like, they are legitimately trying to make him run it, but they have to teach him how to run it.
Well, it's also
that's his latest promotion. But no, it's funny because that's he talked about an interview. The very first thing that Kathleen Kennedy did when she was in charge was go to Dave Filoni and say, "What do you want to do in this company?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Why not try live action next?" So she got him with it. Dave was with Ryan Johnson on set for The Last Jedi and all this stuff, and then she's pushed him up the ladder, But no, there's actually a war at Lucasfilm, and they hate each other.
Yeah.
And he put out The Mandalorian behind her back. She didn't even know they were shooting it. They just snuck the tapes in there one day.
He used VHS. He did VHS tapes. He spent millions and millions of dollars. Have you heard? I'm not sure how
He snuck
in
into
tune
Disney
with
Plus himself and put it in.
he hacked it. I don't know how in tune with politics and stuff you are. I would assume to an extent you are, just because you seem like it. But have you heard the expression there's always a tweet, and it's basically about how politicians projecting, and then there'll be a tweet basically about the same exact thing they're calling somebody else out, accusing someone else of doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't heard the expression, but I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So I left a comment on a Star Wars video today, which was basically something along the lines of there's always a Filoni approved it or Filoni suggested it that side of the fandom ignores. So it'll be the Acolyte's a perfect example. The video I was watching was about the Grand Inquisitor, how he looks different in Obi-Wan. And long story short, it was Filoni was just you don't have to stick to the animation. It's animation. It's gonna look different. It's exaggerated because it's animation.
And
in my opinion,
was true. What the hell's wrong with Dooku?
Yeah. Well, Dooku is jacked up in live action compared to that.
Yeah.
Anakin, I don't think looks the same. The ones that do look the same are the aliens. Ahsoka looks different. The same. Darth Maul looks the same. Grand Inquisitor is too humanoid. He's not distinct enough to have to make him the same. Especially because he was such a I don't want to say side character or niche character, but the Rebels fan base is not as large as the fan base at large. They're gonna cater to live action because it's not a huge deal. But long story short, Filoni approved it, or sorry, it was his idea. The
Yep.
Acolyte had a bunch of stuff come out that it was just like Filoni, yeah, Dave. I was asking Dave, and he said to do this, or Dave suggested this, so then we went with that route, and this, that, and the other. And it's like you guys are blaming Leslie Headland, and you're not understanding that her boss is Dave Filoni, and that he was involved in all of this.
I mean, my favorite thing is that Dave Filoni was part of the people who planned the sequel trilogy. They had, I know people were like, there was no plan. No, there was a group called the IP development group. On the Dave Filoni, it was Pablo Hidalgo. It was what's her face?
Listen, Pablo
She was
Hidalgo is an enemy. He's an enemy too. All right, he's just as bad as Kathleen and Leslie. Filoni's the only good one, and John Favreau.
and like John Favreau comes from Disney,
Yeah,
he was working with Disney, and Kathleen Kennedy doesn't. She was brought in tertiary
yeah,
because George demanded it. It's just a really funny thing to me. Yeah, I think it's
yeah.
interesting.
The dissonance is wild, and I was trying to think about it. Like I've had a video brainstorming for a bit, kind of have to finish writing it and stuff. But with most of what we watch, consume, like regardless of what it is, genre, subject matter, all that, it's an adaptation of some sort, right? Like if you watch
Yep.
anime, guess what, baby? You're watching adaptations of the manga, right? If you're watching a TV show, or sorry, if you're watching, I want to say maybe what 33% of every movie that comes out is on a book, right? Like there's an entire
Yeah.
category at the Oscars for adapted screenplays, right? Like non-original stuff that gets made into movies. So there's, a lot of what people watch is adapted from something, and nobody cares, right? Nobody cares unless it's Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. And it's such a weird thing to me because
Yeah.
it, it,
The Lord of the Rings one for me is really weird because I knew people when those movies came out who were book purists, and they were like, "Oh, it didn't." But now people are mad that the new series is not like the Peter Jackson movies, and not because it's different from the book, because it's not specified in the book, right? That's really not a talk about age, but it just blows my mind that you could be like, "This isn't like the movie," and you're like, "The movie wasn't exactly like the book." It
it's exactly the
doesn't
same
matter.
as yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's exactly the same as original trilogy, prequel trilogy, sequel trilogy. Like the whatever the current thing is, people hate it because it's not like the previous thing. And the Rings of Power, the Lord of the Rings, it's a little bit different because I think people. So, this is gonna sound really bad. This like if I ever run for political office, this is like the soundbite that takes me down. People sometimes have access to too much information, and we need to limit their internet access because with Rings of Power, it became this whole thing about like, oh, because the Silmarillion, and they don't have access to that. They have the rights to the appendices and the original books, so they had to change a bunch of things because if they did it the right way, it would be infringing on the right of the Silmarillion, which they don't have the rights to. And they kind of grab onto that as if it's like here's my proof, you know?
Yeah,
When really it doesn't matter. Like that's the thing. And it's so hard to argue that because the the our brains, both like our brains and the other side's brains, they want more substantial like answers. They want a substantial something with a little bit more meat on the bones other than it doesn't matter. But they've already clung to the idea of like it's not going to be exactly like the actual source material, therefore it's going to be bad. But the gist of it is all exactly the same. Like,
actually,
yes,
you want to know what Dave Filoni said? Uh, Dave Filoni said that it's good that it's different
yeah,
because these are like campfire stories. And you
yeah,
may be around this campfire and it's told this way. You may be around that campfire and it's told the other way. And that answer makes me mad. And then I'm like, but I get it because George modeled it off of the oral tradition of passing down stories, and your stories were parables for life choices and stuff like that. In effect, that's what Star Wars is. It's a hero's tale just being told around a different campfire. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's almost
it's
mythological
interesting.
to an extent, and this is something where like the sequel trilogy, oh, a sequel trilogy is just a rehash of the original trilogy, which it isn't, right? There's a better there's an actual duality when it comes to Rey
Yeah,
and Kylo, and it's not just like father son, and there's more to it, but the hero's journey
there's no
is
love
really what they're
triangle with your sister.
yeah. But essentially what they're referring to is like, yeah, the hero's journey or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, bro, that's just storytelling. That's archetypes. Like you go look at Greek mythology, half those stories are the same. You know, like, yeah, they have their differences here and there, but there's a hero. If it's not Hercules, it's the guy in the with the Minotaur, right? I forget his name. I think it's Pericles or something like that. If it's if it's not Greek mythology, it's something that can be found in Norse mythology, right? Like it's just archetypal structures that apply to telling stories, and you're just viewing it in the lens of Star Wars. Good job letting everybody know that you didn't read enough as a child, and I know that that sounds mean, but it's just the reality of what it is. It's like you're just not everything is Star Wars, like not everything
No,
is this.
it's actually been something I've been saying a lot lately, is that it feels like some people stopped with Star Wars, which Star Wars is supposed to be the gateway, the stepping stone
Hmm.
to deeper sci-fi, to more,
Yeah,
to different things.
some of y'all found
But
Harry Potter and stopped reading after that. And it's kind of like, no, you have to keep going there, bro.
so one of the things well, actually, never mind. I don't want to get into that because I apologize. I know we're running longer than I already said. I've just
Oh,
been
you're
having
good.
fun talking with you.
Yeah.
But we can head towards wrapping it up. I need to know what if you could greenlight the next project from any franchise, from Star Wars, from Marvel, from whatever. What are you going to force them to make? Is it a movie, show, book, comic, game, whatever? Yeah, world's your oyster. What do you do?
Oh, man. Okay. So I've got two here. I've got three, actually. I've got one for Star Wars, one for Marvel, one for DC. So I'll start with Marvel, which is probably the one that's going to give me the most heat here, but it'd be She-Hulk. It'd be continuing She-Hulk. I think it's a fun show. It's a freaking Ally McBeal,
It is a
episode
fun
of the week.
show.
Like sometimes that's what people want, man. Like I don't
I need
need
to
to
go
be diving
rewatch
into.
it.
I rewatched it recently. It holds up. It's fine. It's fine. Some things just exist in like, you know, what is it? Some things just don't fall out of a coconut tree. They exist in the context in which everything that came before them, whatever. And I think that's just, She-Hulk was a victim of that. It had been a long time since there was like substantial Marvel content. People were ready for like the next big cool thing, and they thought She-Hulk was going to be it, even though it did not seem like it was going to be this blockbuster type project that was going to change the game. But it is what it is. I would continue that story. I think Tatiana is amazing in the role. I think
She's amazing
everybody
in everything.
involves. Yeah, she's great, and I think just the character deserves more. Star Wars, I want to say Acolyte season 2, but honestly, I'm kind of even up to when the Acolyte came out, I was already just kind of over Jedi, right? Like I was like, Andor was good, Obi-Wan was good because it was centered around not really Obi-Wan, like I mean it was centered around Obi-Wan, but not him being a Jedi per se. It was just him kind of facing his
Yeah,
demons
it was
and that
him,
kind of deal.
his internal struggle. Yeah,
Right. So like give us Star Wars, bro. Give us like, I don't know, something going on in Coruscant, some sort of like deep state, spy shit or something. I don't know. The what is it? Mon Mothma, her stuff was really cool in Andor,
yeah.
right? Give us something like that. Give us like almost like a Secession type show, but about Mon Mothma, right? But I think now I just want to see Darth Plagueis, right? I wanna hear the story
Yeah.
of Darth Plagueis the Wise. I want to see that play out. I would definitely want that, I think, before I would want anything else, including like Acolyte Season 2. But I think also that would kind of be a Acolyte Season 2. It would be kind of like a spin-off prequel type Season 2 or whatever, and it's around Darth Plagueis and all that kind of deal. DC, though, and this one I hesitate because everybody loves to be like, give us grounded stories, and Robert Pattinson was such an amazing Batman, and blah, 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 blah. So I don't want like heavy tone DC either. I think we got enough of that. I think it's time for like some fun DC stuff to come our way. But I also really want a Kingdom Come movie.
Okay.
Maybe even a duology, like a two movie type of deal when it comes to Kingdom Come. And just give us that story. I love it very, very much. It's one of those just kind of like, I remember being a kid reading it and just freaking losing my brains when thinking Bruce Wayne defected and was working with Lex, and then all of a sudden, psych, I was being Batman, bitch, and you know he had kind of planned it all along. Obviously, seeing Superman kick ass, watching Captain Marvel, Shazam. That's another type of fan. The fans that refuse to just call him Shazam. They're like, that's Captain Marvel. It's like, okay, we get it. You're 50 years old. I get it.
Either 50 years old or you saw a YouTube video and now you think you're better than that.
Yeah, exactly. So like seeing Shazam get his ass whooped, that's always fun to me. You know, I'm not a huge fan when it comes to Billy Batson. I don't hate him per se, but I think
You
after the
don't want
Shazam
the hierarchy
movies,
of power to change in the DC universe.
jeez. Actually, you know what? Actually, I take back the Kingdom Come movie. Black Adam 2. That's what we need. We need the hierarchy of power to change again. All right? We bring back Dwayne Johnson, and Black Adam is just a good guy now. Black Adam is actually Superman. He takes over the mantle from
That's what Dwayne wants for sure.
yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And Clark just gives up. He's overpowered. He looks over at Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot says, "Kal-El, no." But he doesn't listen. He flies off and Dwayne Johnson, boom, Superman. Done deal. And not Elseworlds universe. This is DCU, baby. We are gonna make this
I
the main hierarchy of power.
It makes me like, because I know the Rock's like, no, I'm gonna be the new Superman, but I'm better than Superman, but also I'm evil, but I'm the good guy.
I, s- I, s- yeah,
Come on, man. Can we
I,
can we
yeah, I don't,
take it a step down?
yeah, I don't know. I struggle,
Well,
and I get a little
he,
parasocial when it comes to The Rock. I really do get a
okay.
little bit, like I love him, and because I grew up with The Rock, bro, the most electrifying man in sports entertainment that also showed
I
up,
love the Rock too. I
you know,
just not
but
there.
sometimes it's hard, man. It's hard to like him in some roles because it's just like, dude, Black Adam isn't. Uh, I don't think they did it bad in the movie. I think the idea was okay, right? Like he got resurrected and he's not a dickhead, right? And they changed his origin so that he wasn't banished
Yeah.
to the far reaches of the galaxy or whatever. So like he didn't have to like be bad. I think that part was fine. I think where it got weird is that it just became The Rock being a superhero. Like, I don't know. And then of course with the teaser at the end with Superman showing back up, that was just kind of like a huge letdown because Henry Cavill being back, that was exciting. And
Yeah.
the interviews around that time, Henry Cavill was talking about like, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a joyful Superman. I'm looking forward to, and basically he was like looking at the camera, being like, "Don't worry, we're not doing dark and gritty Superman anymore," which was really cool because I always thought Cavill looked awesome as Superman. I think he still was a little bit too cool to be Clark, but that's fine because you overlook that. You can overlook that a little bit.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you're like, someone's like picking on him at a bar, and you're like, Nobody's picking on that
Nobody's picking on that guy.
enormous dude. What are
Nobody.
you gonna do? Tough
You know
guy
who's a
with your
good one?
big muscles.
That's one of my favorite. Okay, so I have two things that I think about constantly. One of them is that scene in Ghost Rider where Nicolas Cage and the old Ghost Rider are riding together
Yeah,
for like 3 seconds.
yeah,
I think about that a lot because it upsets me because we were robbed, right? Like, damn it, why did they run out of budget now? Like that would have been cool to see, and maybe you see the old guy get defeated, so then Nick Cage, Ghost Rider, has to finish the fight or whatever. Like, I wanted more. But then another thing I think about all the time is when people bully Clark, and then they're like, what the hell? So the one in Man of Steel is a good one. Like, it's a genuinely good shot well, and you see him push him, and it doesn't do anything. Like, I love that. I love that so much. But to your point, like, nobody's walking up to Henry Cavill and trying to bully that guy. But the one from, what's the show, Lois and Clark on CW?
yeah. Superman and Lois. Yeah,
So Lois and Clark is the one with the Superman we don't speak
Dean
of.
Cain.
Superman and Lois, yeah. That one is my absolute favorite one of that because he does not look buff
Yeah,
at all. He's
yeah.
got the muscle suit for sure when he's got the super suit on. So when he's Clark, he looks like a normal guy. He definitely looks like he's going to get bullied or not bullied, but like,
At
somebody
least
gets slick.
overshadowed. Yeah,
Yeah, or look, if somebody's being a dick, they're going to definitely pick on that guy. They're not going to have any hesitations. And then you see the guy at the bar do it. I think he was drunk or something in the episode. He pushes Clark and the same thing happens, and it's so well done. Sorry, that was a tangent, but I love that. I love that.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But to answer your question, Black Adam 2, we're greenlighting it 2026. Get ready for the hierarchy of power to change again.
I mean, for me, one thing I do need us to get Green Lanterns in the mix, and
Yeah.
and just do a training day movie. That's
Oh,
Green Lantern.
shit.
Give me it's a stress training
Kilowog.
day, but it's
Hold on, I got to change batteries here. Hold on.
oh sorry.
Dude, I would love just like a Kilowog ain't got shit on me scene in that Green Lantern project for sure. How do you feel about the one coming out? Because it's kind of like they're kind of
Yeah,
going gritty, I feel like, right? And they're kind of going like a True Detective
I
vibe is what I saw.
I'm excited. I'm very excited. Green Lantern was a character I used to hate, and then I was like,
Okay.
you know what? I'm just gonna try to read a bunch of Green Lantern, and I read all of Robert Von Ditty's run, which I thought was
Okay.
amazing, and then Jeff Johns, and I was like, oh, now I freaking love now I freaking love
Yes.
the
Geoff.
characters.
Yep. Geoff
Um,
Johns.
so yeah, I'm excited for what they're going to do because I think they have a vision,
Yeah.
that I believe in, and the
I
fact
can see
that
it
we
working.
get like animated creature commando, that in and of itself is like, all right, they like some weird stuff, and that makes me super happy. It makes you believe when James Gunn talks about DC, he references the comics a lot, and it
Yeah.
does so naturally. That's what has me excited.
Yeah, but he criticized Keaton Batman one time 15 years ago on Facebook. So he's not qualified for his position.
Yeah, no, they should fire him immediately.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
what I will say, I'm
Also, I'm greenlighting a Robbie Reyes show.
okay. Okay.
I thought he
I
was
don't hate it.
underrated in Agents of Shield. You know, he's
I
a little
think.
older now, but he'd still be into it. Bring him
Oh,
on.
you're saying same actor.
No, that doesn't have to be. I did really like him in there, but and he's the brother on
Yeah,
the
something
zombie
recent.
show. Yeah. So
Zombie
yeah,
show.
he can still do it. Pedro
What?
Pascal, zombies, little girl, Last of Us.
Oh, yeah. Last of Us. He's Pedro's brother. Yeah. The what was I gonna say earlier? I'm a John Stewart Lantern fan though. What about you?
Yeah, I love John. I love John
Okay.
Stewart. I think Kyle Rayner is underrated. I do love. somehow, but Jon Stewart's my dude.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of it has to do with not even the comics, the Justice League Unlimited,
Oh yeah,
the show, the animated Jon Stewart, especially when he's saying the oath, like that was
I mean,
just
Phil Lamar is just the man.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Anything that guy does voice acts for is going to be good. But I think that Jon Stewart Green Lantern oath is for me what I assume our parents' generation went through when they watched like the Rocky movies, and they're getting hype and they hear the Rocky theme song. Da, da, da. That's me with the Green Lantern oath, but specifically Jon Stewart. It
I can
gets
see
me
that.
so
I
hyped,
can feel that.
and I want to see that in live action because with what they're doing, like you said, they have that vision, and I could see it in a way where it satisfies that the dark and gritty crowd where they're like grounded and
Yeah,
realistic, but it's like you can't do that too much because they're Green Lanterns, they're in space, like it's fantasy.
yeah,
So I could see them doing that where it satisfies it, but then it also satisfies the fantastical side, and then just give us one of those oaths, and that's kind of like it's cheesy almost. It's borderline cringe cheese, but I need it.
yeah. It works. I just give us Batman. No, actually,
Yes,
give me a.
I just
I
released
love.
a video about it, about how because that's what's trending now that Penguin is out. Is like who else wishes Matt Reeves would have taken over instead of James Gunn? And it's like no, sit
No,
down.
I don't want that. And I, but I love Battinson because
Me too.
it really highlights the absurdity of Batman when this
Yeah,
weird guy in cosplay
yeah.
is walking around a crime scene, and everyone's like, "Why is that guy here?"
Dun
I
dun
love that so
dun
much.
dun dun, and he's just like, and he
It's-
walks so slow. He walks in every scene. He's just like slowly walking into the crime scene, and people are just like police officers. Like these are
yeah,
licensed police officers of Gotham just watching this guy. But yeah, I think what you're saying is like give
because
us like fantastic
but
Batman,
give
not
us yes, yes.
yeah.
Give me because I'm okay, I like having the take on it, but like it just feels like they just refuse to give us Batman.
Mhm.
I don't know why they don't want to, but like
Yep.
even BVS, was like an old Batman, right? Wasn't Batman at the prime. They've given us
That was the
Batwoman.
closest we
We've
got.
got
Yeah.
we've got Titans. We got Pennyworth. We got the Penguin. We got we have so much Batman adjacent stuff. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
Even they even took Arrow and just made him Batman. You know what I mean? And
Don't
you're
get me
like,
started. Oh
and
my
then you're
God.
just like,
Yes.
just give me Batman. Just
Yeah.
why do you keep doing this? Just give me Batman. You know?
The realistic Batman approach works. And this is what I was saying about it, the video I made. It's basically saying like the realistic DC universe only works, or maybe not only, but works best for Batman because he's a weirdo in a suit cosplaying at a crime scene, and he's a
Yes.
detective, and he's got money to just waste on technology and stuff, and that's great. And they've made really good versions of Batman with that. I think Pattinson is the best version of it. I think Christian Bale is technically not Batman, in my opinion. That's a conversation for another day. But
Okay.
but Christian Bale and Pattinson are not fighting anybody with any sort of enhancement. They're not fighting Mr. Freeze. They're not fighting Clayface even. They're not fighting actual like comic accurate Venom. They're not doing that. Hell, even Ra's al Ghul. You think Ra's al Ghul was gonna lose the fight in Batman Begins? Ra's al Ghul shouldn't have lost, like
Yeah.
in any way, shape, or form. There, he lost because hyperspace travels at the speed of the plot, right? Like that he needed to lose because that's just what the writing was. But and then it applies also to Arrow, where it's like I saw like a Reddit thread one day about like I don't know, it was like power scaling or it was some sort of matchup, and that whole thread was full of people just having CW Arrow way higher than he should have been, and it's like absolutely not. Like no, what? First of all, he doesn't even have one punching bag Arrow. Okay. Second of all, Damien Dark was a whole issue that they had
Yeah,
to like write out of the series because it was very clearly like not realistic or reasonable, I guess, that he was the villain because he should have immediately won in any scenario and he just didn't. So yeah, give us a Batman that could compete with like a John Constantine even, right? Like somebody that's not even like physically powerful or enhanced or whatever, but somebody that can do something that is not of this world, something that is
yeah.
fantastical, something that's
Well, I mean, yeah, and I think what we're saying is that the true focus on the crossovers now,
yeah,
where they need like a shared universe that works for everyone, and that doesn't work. Make Batman stuff like Batman stuff, make Superman stuff like Superman stuff, and then when they cross over, give us a middle ground there, or whatever. But like,
yeah.
give them own. You know what I mean? I don't need the Green Lantern show to feel accurate. You know, he's flying through
Yeah.
space based off of his emotions. You know what I mean? Like
He's like, I'm feeling motivated today, baby. Let's go.
based on how confident he is. Like you could get a
Yeah.
haircut that just devastates him. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. He's like, damn, bro, the
yeah,
barber messed up my tape. Let's say I'm not flying today. But yeah, I think if we're gonna see Batman in the DCU moving forward, and I think it's very much on purpose that they haven't said much about it. It needs to be something where if he encounters the Flash, he needs to be able to like subdue the Flash. That's it. No live action Batman up until this point has convinced me that they would be able to.
no.
Maybe Batfleck, but even then I don't know because he was a heavy prep time type of Batman. I don't even think he'd be able to do it,
I mean, he
to be
was a
honest.
heavy machine gun type of Batman, but that's a whole nother topic
That
as
too.
well.
That too.
But on that note, this has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
We want to definitely want to also have you on a Diet in the Forest when we do the live show because it's fun to interact with the audience and stuff. And I think you will obviously be great at that. But yeah, if you want to wrap up, I mean, any closing thoughts of what you think, well, anything outside of geekdom that you're interested in or into, and then any final thoughts, and then lastly, once again, where people can find you.
I mean, I'm pretty open to just consuming things. Like I'm very much not a closed-minded person, so I can encounter whatever, and if it interests me, it interests me. So I'm watching Gilmore Girls for the very first time now because it's fall time. We gotta, and my coffee intake has increased. I'm not sure if
As it
you
should.
understand why that is, but Gilmore
I
Girls
haven't seen it myself, but
girlies know why. It's because Lorelai drinks a lot of coffee. I basically will watch anything and everything, to be honest with you. I think the most important thing I want to talk about, whether it's here on another show, on my stuff, and the biggest thing that I think I don't get across enough, just because the nature of social media and all this kind of stuff, is you can have discussions, geeky stuff, nerdy stuff, pop culture, Gilmore Girls, doesn't matter. And you can critique, you can talk about, and you can share them with a community and give honest opinions and say you like this, you don't like this, and have these discussions and be respectful, courteous, and at the same time not like everything. I think where things go wrong is that people along the way, somebody gets defensive for whatever reason, right? And I think us talking right now, we've had a couple of interactions where I understand why people would maybe get offended the way we talk about them. But if you're talking about shows, you're talking about whatever it is, there should be no reason to feel unwanted or like somebody feels less than, or for you to feel less than whoever you're talking to or engaging with or your community. And if you ever feel that way, say it and express it and tell people. And based off of how you react, I think that is based off of how that person reacts, that tells you whether or not you should continue engaging with them. And I think that's the biggest piece of it all. Just a quick example. I get comments all the time about people that disagree with me. I'll respond, I'll be courteous. It is what it is, right? If I were to respond and not be courteous, that's how you know you shouldn't follow me, right? I'm not that way, but this is just for the sake of that example. So I think this has been a very long-winded way of saying, enjoy what you enjoy, and don't let anybody make you feel like you shouldn't do what you want to do and what you enjoy. That's it. And if you want to find me, it's Nerd Speech. Exactly spelled exactly how those two words sound. Instagram is nerd.speech. Also on YouTube, trying to kind of grow on there and stuff as well too. And yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. I always enjoy talking about Marvel, Star Wars, DC. I don't talk about it enough, to be honest. And it's nice talking about it to a human being and not just like my camera, because
yeah.
it's almost weird. It's almost like I'm unprepared to talk to another human about it. So it's always a fun time.
I was going to mix it up. I appreciate it so much, and thank everyone for watching and listening. And we will see you in the next one. Peace.